Recording. So welcome week 5, creative writing and publishing for teens. Let's go down and see what we got today. Have you ever read a text and wondered, why do the words jump off this page? Why does this writing feel energetic and strong? Oh, there's Maggie. Hi, Maggie. Welcome to class. We are just beginning. I'm going to go ahead and start over really quick just for you because I just began. Have you ever read a text and wondered, why do the words jump off this page? And why does this writing feel energetic and strong? And why is it so fast-paced? You've all probably read a book that you couldn't put down. First drafts often require an interjection of power and pizzazz. I'm going to move this up a little bit. Move this over a little bit. There we go. I thought I'd try this different presentation. It's a lot larger. Do you like it this way? And it's larger than my normal. How are you, Maggie? It's so good to see you. Okay, we're talking about first drafts because you all are doing a first draft right now for class, right? So first drafts often require an injection of power and pizzazz. First drafts are usually full of weak verbs that make your writing limp and flabby and listless. I know it sounds awful. It's like, oh, cover my ears. Usually because you're in a hurry. I do this too. I absolutely do this, and that's my first draft. And I always say to myself, it's okay because it's my first draft, you know. In contrast, strong verbs add action, vitality, color, zest. So the secret to writing with gusto is to choose strong verbs. Yes. So this is one of the things that I want you to do some editing on in your paper this week. So what are strong verbs? Well, strong verbs are words that engage your senses. That's your sights, your sounds, your tastes, everything, right? And they help your readers form a picture in their mind. And let's look at this example. You feel the air reverberating when he slams his fist on the table. The teacups jiggle, his face reddens, and his voice thunders. I definitely hear that a lot better, don't you? The average professional writer rewrites 3 to 10 times. They totally go over their manuscript. They're looking for different things each time, but they're totally shaping it and polishing it as they go along. We'll only do ours once, maybe twice, who knows. But each time it does get better and better, and the characters take on more life. So after each draft, you grow in technique and style as a writer. Strong verbs allow your readers to visualize the action instead of only reading the words. This is so important. It's kind of like showing and not telling. Have either one of you learned about that? I'm thinking because you're both strong writers, you probably already know what show don't tell means, but we'll talk about it more in a little bit. Yes, good. Okay. Let's see. Strong verbs allow readers to visualize the action instead of only reading the words. They're drawn into the story to experience your story, not just read it. But strong verbs don't need to convey powerful action. They can also have subtle action, but evoke powerful feelings, such as, for instance, he cradles the baby, he strokes her dark hair, he tickles her chin, and hums a lullaby. Strong verbs are also precise and concrete. In contrast, weak verbs are abstract and generic, and they don't help you to visualize a scene at all. For instance, if someone provides feedback to you, are they shouting their comments? Are they lecturing you with a smug face? Or perhaps scribbling a few suggestions in the margin? I got to go back up to this one. You can't picture provide feedback, right? But you can visualize in your mind someone shouting, lecturing, or scribbling. So that's the whole point. You're painting a picture for your readers, and you want to choose the right words that allow you to do this. For instance, I'm going to move these pictures around a little bit because there, I can see a little better. For instance, to walk is stronger than to go because it gives you an indication of how someone is moving. But stronger options would be to saunter, to hike, to shuffle, to trudge, to stride, to plod. And each of these verbs gives you an indication of how someone walked. To saunter, picture a girl walking leisurely. Perhaps she's peeking into shop windows. She's just sauntering around. To hike, picture a man in hiking boots or a woman with a backpack walking at a good pace, right? They might even be like marching around. To shuffle, picture an elderly woman moving ahead gingerly. She's hardly lifting her feet. She's just shuffling along. To trudge, picture a man in rubber boots making a big effort. Perhaps the mailman, he's walking through the snow or mud. I can totally see that. To stride, picture a model walking down the stage with long strides. To plod, picture a tired woman with sagging shoulders walking rather tiredly. But do you see how each one of these verbs gives you a different connotation of what someone is doing in a scene? And that's what you want to do. You want to paint the scene with your words so that it becomes alive to those who read it. Not just you, because in your mind you already know what's going on. You know the color of this and how that looks, but we have no idea because you're painting with words. So remember that. Strong verbs can also be used for abstract language. For instance, you could say you generated ideas during your brainstorm session, but how did your ideas arrive? For instance, a few ideas popped into your mind. Your mind exploded with ideas. A stream of ideas burst forward. Ideas first trickled, then they gushed forth. The brainstorm session spawned a stream of ideas. You see how much more colorful that is than just saying, we had a brainstorming session and I got some good ideas. All right, here we go. Let's do a writing exercise. Use the sentences below and breathe life into them by replacing the weak verbs with stronger ones. Type in the chat box. Raiden went into the forest. He was going on a quest to find the hidden key. He looked inside the hollow oak tree. So 5 minutes. Use the sentences below and breathe life into them by replacing the weak verbs. Well, the first weak verb is went into the forest. Was is the second one. He was going on a quest to find the key. Looked. There you got 3 of them. He looked inside the hollow oak tree. Let's see what you can do with these 3 sentences. 5 minutes. All right, it looks like Aster has something. Let's see what she's got to say. Raiden slipped into the forest. I like that. He accepted the quest to find the hidden key. I like that too. He inspected the hollow in the oak tree. I like that too. Really good verbs. I could definitely see that in my mind. I can see him slipping into the forest like undercover, That's really good. All right, Maggie's got something. Raiden sauntered into the forest, even if it was the last thing that he would ever do. He will complete the quest to find the hidden oak tree, or to find the hidden key. He peered into the hollow oak. Good job. Each one of you had like a different flavor. I like that. With stride? Okay. All right. So Raiden strode into the forest, even if it was the last thing. You know what? That works a lot better, doesn't it? Because strode and, and what he was saying, if it was the last thing that he ever did, that really went together a whole lot better. Good job. Excellent job. All right, let's see here. I don't know what happened here. No. What happened to my chat box? There we go. All right, let's go on. All right, let's talk a little bit about adjectives and adverbs. Some of us are in love with adverbs and adjectives. The rule of thumb is 1 adjective. And if you have to have another one, maybe 2. So the idea is you say the sentence with each adjective, and then you decide which one is the most accurate. Like you don't want to say her long, black, shiny hair, right? That's long, black. Maybe it's long, black, curly, long, black, that's just too much. And here's the problem with it. There's something called pacing. That means when someone's reading a story, there's a pace to it. If someone has to continually stop and, read through all these adjectives, sometimes you lose the meaning of a sentence. You're not even sure what they're talking about anymore, because each time you have a noun, there are so many adjectives attached to it, you have no idea what they're trying to say. So the rule of thumb is 1, maybe 2, maybe. Okay, let's take a look here, and I think you'll find out why. Sometimes text can sag under the weight of adjectives and adverbs. So we're going to take a look at this example. While quietly sitting at her wooden desk, she slowly formulated her thoughts, and she worked really hard to write her blog post. The next day, she felt apprehensive and nervously hit publish. Would her audience be interested enough to read her content word by word? We'll find out. So to add energy to the text, the first step is to strip it back to the bare bones and just write down exactly what it was that she did without anything added to it at all. So she formulated her thoughts to write her blog post. The next day, she hit publish. Would her audience be interested to read her content? Let's see how to spruce it up here. All right. So here's the stripped down version. It lacks a lot of luster, right? But here's the better version. For hours, she sat at her desk. She racked her brain and slaved over her words to produce a blog post. And the next day, she hit publish with trepidation. Would her audience gobble up her words? So you see how much stronger this second one is, because there are better verbs in here. And it took out those adverbs and adjectives. Adverbs, those are ly words, usually show that someone is writing a weak verb. Their verb is too weak to stand on its own. So let's say someone was working slowly at their homework, right? Let's just say Aster's little brother. She may not have one, but for example, Aster's little brother was slowly working at his homework, okay? Or we could say Aster's little brother dawdled at his homework. I mean, that's so much stronger. And it's less words, too. More words aren't necessarily better. If they're to the point, that's what you want. You want it clear and concise so that the reader understands and knows exactly what you're trying to say to them, okay? Oh, and remember the little thing on the bottom. Remember, thesaurus is your best friend. Use a thesaurus to find more precise alternatives for weak verbs. And I'm believing that you both already know that if you're writing in Microsoft Word and you hover over a word and right click, there's a drop down box, and down on, the drop down menu, and down probably near the bottom is synonyms. So it's just too easy. It's just too easy, right? There's no reason why you can't do it. It's too easy to find good synonyms. Okay, let's go on. Okay, we're going to pick on a few words that we want you to toss out of your manuscripts. Are you ready? Take some screenshots if you need to. The first one is went. Went is a very weak verb, and it is very generic. And kids in my elementary classes, they use went, but high schoolers should never use went in writing fiction. Slash it as many times as you can and replace it with stronger verbs. Do you know how to use a find and replace on your Microsoft Word? And you know what, I'm not sure. Good. Aster says yes. And Maggie, are you a find and replacer? You use Google Docs. Do they have one on Google Docs? I'm not sure about that. They do. Okay, cool. Find and replace, the next best friend after thesaurus. All right, let's do a writing exercise. On Saturday, I want you to get rid of all the whents. Uh-oh. What is this? No. I don't want you. I've never had that happen before. My phone said there's an emergency testing of some kind. All right, let's go on. Of course, I want you to slash the whents. Okay, here we go. On Saturday, I went on a hayride. It was fun. Oh, there's was again. Then I went to pet the goats. The spotted goat ate the buttons off my jacket. I went inside to tell the man behind the counter. After that, I went home. I think I'd go home too. So replace all the weak verbs in these several sentences and type the new sentences in the chat box. And I'll give you like 5 minutes for that. Funny. All right, let's see what Aster says. On Saturday, move this out a little bit, I ventured to try the hayride. I had a thrilling time. Afterwards, I skipped to the barn and I petted the goats. The spotted goat ate the buttons off my jacket. I retreated to the store and told the man behind the counter. Then I hurried home. Wow. Yes, I love it. Those are great verbs. I can totally visualize that. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay, let's see what Maggie says. On Saturday, I was bumped and jolted around inside of a hayride. It was fun. After I skipped down the park to pet the goats, the spotted goat gobbled down the buttons on my shirt. I like that, gobbled. That's good. I strided inside to yell, and I think it'd be strode. I strode inside to yell at the man behind the counter. You yelled at the man behind the counter. That's good. After I trudged home. Oh, that's good. Good job, though. Seriously, I loved the gobbled. That was really good. And you got bumped and jolted. That was good, too. You used was, though. Like, oh, we'll work on that one. Okay, but excellent. Seriously. Just very, very good. All right. Let's go on. Oh, I don't know why this is that. I'm gonna figure that out. Nope. Boop. Let's go down. Okay, another word you have to get rid of is got. Now, none of you really use got, do you? I think I may have seen it a time or two in some of your homework, so can't use got. Let's see. Something's going on with the chat. I don't know why I can't get my box back. Come back. I don't know why I can't get the chat back up, but I know that it's here. Okay. Got is a verb meaning to come into possession of, to achieve something. So if you keep that in mind, whenever you're, first draft, you can have gots, no problem. But after the first draft, get rid of them. So here's a few things that you could use instead of got, and of course there's a ton more. Bring, draw, earn, gain, grab, have, land, make, obtain, pick up, pull, realize, receive, score, take, win, access, accomplish, acquire, annex. I've got a whole another list. I would take a screenshot if you like that. All right, let me see if I can find get my chat to come back up here. So we did went, we did got, and here is was. Was is not good, and we may have done was before. Yeah. All right, let's see. The drawback of using was is that it tends to lead to a reliance on too much telling and not enough showing. Now, both of you girls have heard about show, don't tell, right? C.S. Lewis said, don't tell me that your character is afraid. Show me by how you describe it about what's happening to them so that the very hairs on my neck stand up, right? So you wouldn't want to say stuff like, Maggie walked into the forest and she was afraid, and so she ran out. You would want to say, Maggie walked into the forest and she heard a sound, and the hairs on the back of her neck stood up. Her heart began to pound, her palms were all sweaty, and she bolted out of the forest. So I'm showing you. I'm showing you, yes, instead of telling you how she was when she was afraid. So let's take a look at was. I'm kind of getting off topic a little bit. Jane walked into her office. There was a note on her desk inviting her curiosity. In the corner, there was a bunch of flowers on the chair. It made her smile. So was makes it hard to expand on the action. Let's take a look at the next slide here. Now let's change it up, take out the was's. Jane walked into her office, spotted a note on her desk. It sparked her curiosity. As she moved closer to it, a hint of color caught her eye, and she turned to see a bouquet of yellow roses resting on the chair, her lips curved with a smile. So you can see that the second paragraph gives more for the reader to work with. Instead of telling us, the reader, there was a note and there was this, it allows the reader to share in the curiosity and show, not tell. So we eliminated was. It says was is a necessary word, but if you use it too much in a story, it becomes annoying. Replace was with your action words when you can. So again, use that find and replace feature on your computer, on your Microsoft Word, on your Google Docs, wherever it is. And when you do it, count the number of was's, and you're going to be shocked at how, or the wents or gots, whichever you want, and then we'll see how you do. Okay, so we talked about went, we talked about was, we talked about got. Now let's talk about look. This is kind of one of my favorite ones to eliminate because when you do, you really add a lot more action into the story. It is your character's job to describe what the world looks like around him or her, but are you using the word look too much? And the same is with gaze, any of those, the same thing. Are you using that too much? For example, she crept into the room and looked around. Where was that stupid book? She saw a small desk sitting in the corner with Lulu's bedazzled journal right out in the open. Gotcha. So now let's cut looked and seeing, and this is what you get. She crept into the room. Where was that stupid book? Bedazzled leather teased her from a small desk in the corner, right out in the open. Gotcha. So you can see that you don't even have to say looked or that she saw, but that it's implied, especially if you add some inner dialogue. You know that she's looking at something, she says it inside, and it's much stronger that way. So again, do a find and replace for the words look, saw, glanced, any of those synonyms, because then you're going to need to change it up and add some inner dialogue, and that'll help reveal what the character is looking at, right? You'll be showing us what the character is looking at instead of telling us. So got to get show, don't tell everywhere. Suddenly. I do remember that you don't even need it. You can cut it almost everywhere, except in a few instances when it really is suddenly. And you can ask yourself the question, is it really suddenly happening? You might do you have that a lot in your your current manuscript? Okay, yeah. Offhand, I don't, but a rule of thumb, I don't have one, but I know that you're not supposed to use it. And you can use it a little bit, but that's all. And you ask yourself, is stuff always suddenly happening? Here and there it happens suddenly, then it's suddenly this and suddenly this. It might be that you need to work something up. When I read it over it, I'll give you some comments and suggestions then. Let me write that down and see if I can find anything for that. Any other pet words that either one of you have? That, wow. I don't know. I like wow. I know my editor says, you know, this person says wow a lot. So here's the thing. If they say it too much, that's when it becomes a problem. When the word is repeated and repeated. So I would find different ways to say the same thing. Right? If they're always going to be saying wow, you know, and also it probably depends on their age, because if it's, you know, a teen, right, kids or whatever, they might always say wow. But I would find some synonyms, and instead of them always saying wow, I would find something else that they could say as well. Yeah, because you definitely don't want a bunch of repeated words. I didn't say that this time, but I'll just add that in now. If you've got pet phrases that you continually repeat, and if you're using the same, I think I saw the same word in the same paragraph, you cannot do that either. So no repeat words. Do your best. That's when you got to use that drop down box, synonyms. All right. Any other questions? And actually, there's like a whole bunch of words to cut out, and I'll have us watch a little video at some point, I think, for homework. I felt like it was just so helpful. You use checked twice in the same sentence. Yeah, you've got to take one of them out. Because there's so many synonyms out there. Seriously, there's so many different ways you can say that. So, all right. Let's go on here. Oh, we're already down here. All right, I'm going to switch this up for a minute. I can, it'll let me. Okay, there we are. All right, so I can't believe we just brushed right through that. Well, that's good. Okay, so keep on writing and follow the homework page for week number 4. That was last week, but just follow the different things that I'm looking for. And of course, this week's homework, along with finishing your paper, is to take out as many was, went, got, and look that you can before sending it in to me Tuesday, 5 p.m. We will read them and critique them in class next week. So see if you can make sure that you have a microphone that works. A lot of times, oh, no, it's not due till next week. It's not due till next Tuesday, so you're not late at all. No worries on that at all. But we will critique them in class as well. And let me see if because we have a few more minutes here, let me see if I can pull up critiques, things to look for. That way we won't have to do it next week. Let's see if they'll come up. No, not this way. Let's see. Oh, I see. It's giving it to me in slides. Okay, critiquing is fun. It really is fun. It helps us to see the blind spots in our writing. Let's go on and see if it, oh no, it's going to give me trouble. Let me see if I can pull it up this way. Yes. Can everybody see that? Am I still sharing this on my screen about critiquing is fun? Okay, good. So it is here. All right. So it helps us see the blind spots. And a critique is not negative. It's a positive overview, telling the other person what you like first. You know, it's not always looking at all the negative things. It's always kind, and you give helpful advice by looking at the list below. Oh, good, good. So things to look at in a critique. Let's see if this will go up for me. Is there a clear hook? I always look for that and listen for that. Do they use repeating pet phrases or words? Okay, we did talk about that in class today. Are there places they're telling too much and not showing? Number 4, check for too many ly words. Those are the adverbs. And we did talk about that in class today. Do they have any weak verbs that could be more precise, like went or was? Do they have too many of those? Did they waffle anywhere? And I don't know if we talked about waffling, but waffling is going on and on about something that's not important at all. For instance, you know, Jane was looking for her socks. You know, Jane's mother calls up, Jane, it's time for breakfast. Jane continues to look under her bed for her socks, you know. You cannot go on and on and on about her finding her socks. Unless the socks are magical, you know, or something, you got to just say it once and move on. No waffling on and on. I used to have one student in one of my classes. They wanted to go on and on about what someone was eating. Now, I like eating scenes because I feel like it adds relatability and comfort, but you cannot go on like, you know, 2 pages on the feast that they had and how they gobbled up, you know, first they gobbled up the pie, then they gobbled up the cookies, then they gobbled down, you know, you just, that's what they call waffling. You're going on and on and on. Just get to the point. Do you see any sentences, number 7, that is awkward and that you do not understand? A lot of times, you know, when we're writing, we know in our minds what we're thinking about, but you might not as the reader. So that's why, you know, we're critiquing it for you. Number 8, can you give any creative suggestions? Oh, you cannot see the slide that I'm talking about. Okay, let me see if I can work that out. Oh, now I don't see anything. All right, what happened? Come on back. Oh, it's down here. Okay, let's see. I think it's this one. All right, now can you see it? Yes, you can. Okay, awesome. So sorry about that. Sometimes you never know when you're switching things back and forth if you can see it or not. Do all of these things make sense to you? And we've talked about most of them already, so I'm hoping that it makes sense to you. Let's see if this will let me go up. Oh, good, it does. Also, now we haven't talked about giving creative suggestions for the plot, the character, or setting. Again, it's a new set of eyes, so go ahead and be bold and say, you know, I think I like how you're doing it. You always use what we call the sandwich method. That means you say something positive first, then in the middle you might say a little bit of what you might like to see changed, then on the end you add the positive. So you might say, I just, you know, I really love that you added in this specific thing about her big red hat. But I think that you waffled on a little bit about it and you kind of lost me in all the words. But keep it up because I love what you're doing there. See, so there's a lot of positive. Now, and we haven't talked about research. We'll probably do, I'm thinking we'll do a session on research because it lends to believability in your writing. So you can always find a place where you can do a little research that makes your writing pop and sound really good. So you might give them one area that they can do research in. I'm trying to think. For instance, one of you gals are writing about that mental problem. I would absolutely research that and research people who have had it, research the kind of things that they were up against. I mean, that would really make your writing sound good. All right, and things to praise. You always want to look for things to praise in a critique in someone's story. I always like the 5 senses in a setting, right? If I can smell it and taste it and experience it through my senses, then I'm like, I love this story. Also, personification. Now, we haven't talked about that yet, but you may already know what that is. It's giving human qualities to non-living things. For instance, I'm trying to think of a really good example from one of my students. He was writing about how this young man was out on a boat and there was a storm, and he was talking about how he was engulfed in the army of waves, and each time, you know, there was another wave, he was, you know, giving living actions to those waves, you know, and I was like, wow, this is really good writing. And of course, always praise showing and not telling, and good stage directions. We haven't talked about that yet, but we will. Stage directions is like if you were in a play and you would be looking at your script, it might say, it might tell you as the character, stand to the left, pick up the bowl of fruit, begin to eat, right? So as the person's talking, it tells you what they're also doing. So sometimes, and I think you two probably have done a good job with that, you add stage directions to your quotes, to your dialogue. And of course, there's the great dialogue down there, and inner dialogue. Inner dialogue, I think both of you girls are pretty good with that. Inner dialogue is really good at letting us in your character's head. I would totally read a story if I knew what was going on in that person. I become like, oh, I love this person now because I'm relating to them. I know what's going on with them because you're telling me what's going on by what they're saying in their minds. Now, I haven't said this, and I think I've got time to explain this. Let me see if I can get my, let's see, if I stop sharing this and trying to remember where. My whiteboard. Here's my whiteboard. Let's see if that works. Yay, whiteboard. Okay, let's do text. Has any of you ever heard of what's called an action dialogue tag? And I may have. Let's see if my chat's. So action dialogue tags. That means you actually eliminate as many dialogue tags as you can, and instead you add a sentence before that. You add a sentence before that that shows who is doing what action. For instance, let me think if I can think of one off the cuff. Stay out of my room. Now I could say, Aster yelled at her brother. But I could also say, Aster pushed her brother out the door. Now I don't have to say who said it. I know who said it. Aster said it. I can do that before as well. Aster pushed her brother out of the room, out of the door. Stay out of my room. And I didn't even have to say, said Aster. Now, what about her brother? Ronnie, her fictitious brother. Ronnie planted his feet. Ronnie planted his feet And I could say, and said, but I'm not going to. Ronnie planted his feet and he folded his arms. Can't you see it in your mind? Fat chance. Or I could say, fat chance. Or I could say, maybe he's challenging her. Make me. So you can see that the action dialogue tag, so it's called an action tag instead. And that means that you show an action and then you add the dialogue of what the person's saying. And you don't even have to say said, cried, yelled, or whatever. Stay out of my room, exclamation point, is telling me she yelled already. Aster pushed her brother out of the door. Ronnie planted his feet and folded his arms. Make me. Now, can you see the action in that? There's so much action going along, and you don't have to say said or yelled or anything like that. That's mature writing. So think about those things. I was going to add that later, but we had a few minutes. So I'm thinking, why not add it now? Does that all make sense to you? And were you able to see the whiteboard? Oh, cool, cool. Oh, awesome, awesome, yes. So the thing is, you have to think it through a little. So when you're doing some editing this week, right, before you turn it in, look at all your lines of dialogue. Of course, I think it was Aster who said she's got 26 pages. So, you know, eventually you will need to look at all of these things. But, you know, the 7 pages that you're going to turn in, you know, look at your dialogue and see how you can change, you know, of course, the things that I said already, the went and the got and all this and that. And how about those action, see if you can add an action tag to your dialogue instead and take those dialogue tags, said, yelled, cried, take those out. That's just the challenge. If you don't want to try it, it's okay, but your writing like goes, it bumps up about, you know, 10 notches when you do that. All right, let's see. Someone asked a question. Aster said she has chapter 3 written, but the new pages that she has written since last week are in the end of chapter 3 and chapter 4. What would you like me to send in? Have I read all the stuff that you have before? Have I read chapter 1 and chapter 2 already, Aster? Okay. I have read up to chapter 2. Okay. Well, have we as a class read that? So do we know what you're talking about if you start reading? Okay. Yeah, no, we wouldn't know what you're talking about. So I think, you know, since it's just the two of us, why don't you, we would definitely want to read the first chapter, wouldn't we? So that we know what's going on. Are you excited about the other stuff that's going on now? Because I know sometimes students are like, I can't wait. I want to share, you know, what's going on. Okay. All right. So I think, because we will read again, I would say, why don't you read to us chapter 1? Are you good with that next week? And then Maggie says she has. Yeah, you can read first 7 pages. And you know, you might even be able to read 10 pages because there's just 2 of us. Or you could like do a sampling of chapter 1 and chapter 2. What do you think about that? That might be fun. All right, I'm really looking forward to hearing it and to reading it and giving you comments as well. So Maggie, what's your question? Are you still here, Maggie? And do you still have your question? Let's see. All right, so y'all know what the homework is, right? Get rid of went, get rid of was, get rid of got, get rid of look, and see if you can add some dialogue tags in. Oh, she's typing her question now. Okay, good. All right, I'll wait for you. I'll wait for you. She must have a big question. And I'm really proud of how you're doing, you know, you're really writing inner dialogue for your character. In many of my classes, I had to really teach that. So you're really advanced beyond a couple of classes. So give yourself some kudos for that. Let's see, Aster says, when will we begin publishing? Also, is there an extra cost to publish? We'll be publishing the last 3 weeks of class. And no, there's not an additional cost. The cost part comes in if you want to, there's no cost to uploading your book to Lulu, but if you want them to print it, you have to pay them to print it. So my books are usually about between $3 and $5, I think, and then you have to pay postage, whatever it costs for them to send your book to you. So, and you know, the cool thing is you can actually set up a store on lulu.com, and if you've got like a website or a Facebook page or anything, you can add a link to that, and people can actually go to the store in Lulu and they can purchase your book. And Lulu will print off a book and they'll send it to your customer. How cool is that? I believe, let me think here. So let's say it costs you $4 to print your book, and then actually you're going to sell your book for $14. So you make $10 profit. So I think if you're going to sell your books on Lulu, I believe they might take a percentage, which is a very normal thing for them to do, and then you would get the remainder. Let's say they take $3 out of every 10 you sell, and you get the $7. So, I mean, how cool is that? Seriously. We can talk about how to set up PayPal accounts and all those different things if you really want to sell or try to sell your books. There's just a lot of things that you can do to make money that way. All right, let's see. Maggie's got a question. Did that answer your questions, Aster? Maggie says, based on your experience reading my story so far, do you think I should make it in historical fiction, like Metis and settlers in Canada, or some sort of fantastical world? Okay, I really don't want to use magic or mythological creatures. I like realism, but it seems like my story isn't like something that would happen in the real world, like actually something. Let's see if that's it. It's set in the 1600s. Do you want it to kind of be like a story like Pocahontas, where, you know, in the 1600s, you know, they came to Jamestown, they, you know, they did all these things, and of course, you know, there's lots of wars, and, you know, the Indians are fighting the, you know, settlers, the settlers are fighting the, what I suggest doing is rewrite the first page and totally make it the change, the 1600s, make it just what you had said. Let's see, you said settlers in Canada, okay? Change it, the first page, rewrite that first page and see how it sounds to you. And if it sounds like, oh, wow, yes, I'm gonna go with this is so much better, then change it, you know. Now, what I've read so far, you know, I thought it sounded kind of cool. It sounded like a fantasy story to me. I I don't think you have to have magic in every fantasy story, or mythological creatures either. So, I mean, you could set it in medieval times. In medieval times are the times that, you know, during the feudal system, everyone is fighting everyone. So, you know, that works, right? That works. So, okay, let's see if there's another message on here. How long is my book? The one that costs $3 to $5 to print. I think it was like 150 pages. That was one of the mid-grade novels that I had. So it's so much fun. Honestly, it's so much fun to see your book in print, to see the words that you've written, and a cover, and, you know, they're sending it to you, and there it is. It's really pretty amazing. And, you know, if you ever want to really sell it, you could sell it on Amazon. You can load it up, get your Amazon account. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can really, really sell your book. Yeah. You can't wait. I know. It's like, I can't wait for this. I know. It's so fun. Do they make the cover? No, you do. And they give you what's called a cover generator. And so it's a template, right? So you'll see the template on your screen. It'll have the front cover and the back cover, and then in the middle is a spine. It's what's called a wraparound cover, right? That's really what they use in publishers, and because it's going to wrap around the book. And what they'll do is they'll give you ability to write text in different styles, and I think they give you different images to choose from, or you can pick your own image out. So, I mean, sky's the limit. Yes, you can add illustrations if you have it. I think it has to either be a JPEG, might have to be a PDF file, but we'll talk about how to make all that. Yeah, you can absolutely add illustrations, but you have to remember, if they're colored illustrations, it's more costly. If your interior of your book is black and white, then it is much cheaper to print. But if you add color, it goes up quite a bit. So you have to take that into consideration. Yeah, you can absolutely illustrate your own book cover. And, you know, next week, maybe I should write myself a note here. I'm going to show you some of the books that couple of my classes published. And I'm trying to remember if some of the kids illustrated some of their covers. I know one of the boys, he has like Photoshop, and so he just used clip art, and he made the cover for everyone. And so he did a really awesome job. And but yes, you can add illustrations too. And the thing is, they have to be good quality, because when you print them, you know, you have to scan them into your computer or take a photo of it, so that it's really good quality, because when it actually transfers from digital to print, then sometimes you lose a little of the quality. That's where the professionalism comes in. So right now we're kind of playing around to see, you know, what are we going to get? And the truth of the matter is, sometimes you surprisingly get a really good quality and image and cover and the whole 9 yards. So I'm super excited to see what you come up with, especially if you love to draw. It's wonderful to put it all together. So, well, that was fun, class. I can't wait till next week, because we get to read our stories. So be ready, okay? Check your microphones. Make sure that they work, and if you want to come on with video, you know, and read the story with your face, I mean, cool. You can totally do that too. You don't have to, but you could if you want to. So I'm going to leave that up to you, okay? Well, thanks for the class. Take care, everyone. Email me questions and keep going. And let's see what you come up with next week. I'll be looking on my Google class pages to find out if your stories are up there, and I'll do my best to leave comments. It takes me about a week to, you know, get them back to you, especially if they're longer pages, but no worries. All right, take care, and I will see you next week.